Welcome to the Zapier Integrations Google Sheets webinar. My name is Isabel. I'm the Product Content Manager here at Pipefy. In today's webinar, we'll talk about how you can integrate Pipefy to Google Sheets via Zapier to either import data into your pipes by creating cards or export data into a spreadsheet. This webinar will be divided into two parts. First, we'll talk about what Zapier is and how you can use it to connect Pipefy to over 1,000 apps. Then, I'll teach you how to create two separate integrations, one for creating cards in a pipe by adding data to a spreadsheet, then the other for exporting data from a pipe into a spreadsheet. First of all, let me talk a little about what Zapier is and how it works. According to their own definition, Zapier is the glue that connects more than 1,000 apps. It's an online automation tool that connects apps such as Google Sheets, Pipefy, Gmail, and Slack to automate repetitive tasks without coding or depending on developers to create the integrations. In Zapier, Pipefy can be used either as a trigger or an action. I'll explain those concepts in the next slide. There are 6 Pipefy triggers in Zapier: new card, card moved, card done, card overdue, card late, and card expired. As an action, Pipefy can be used to either create or delete a card. There are a few important concepts we need to define since we use those terms a lot during today's webinar. The first term in our list is Zap. Zapier defines a Zap as an automated workflow between your apps. Zaps consist in at least a trigger and one or more actions. The trigger is the event in an app that starts the Zap. Once you create and turn on a Zap, Zapier will monitor your trigger app for that specific event. In our case, we'll have 2 different events: when a card is done in Pipefy and new spreadsheet row in Google Sheets. The action, on the other hand, is the event that completes the Zap. In our integrations, the actions will be create new spreadsheet row and create new card. The concept of task is really simple. Each piece of data we run through our Zaps counts as a task. So let's suppose if we add 10 rows to our spreadsheet and create 10 new cards, we run 10 tasks. It's very important to keep track of the number of tasks you run because of the Zapier plan limits. Creating a new Zap in Zapier is really easy. We'll have at least 2 steps: trigger and action. We can also have optional steps like filter or format, or even create a multi-step Zap that runs more than one action with a single trigger. We'll dig a little deeper in the process of creating new Zaps in a few minutes. As I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we'll create 2 integrations between Pipefy and Google Sheets. Our first integration will create new cards in a pipe when we add data to a spreadsheet. Our second one will export data into a spreadsheet when the cards are done in Pipefy. Now, we're going to start working. For our Zaps, here's what we'll need. We'll need a Pipefy account with a pipe in it where our cards will be created and where they'll be moved to done, a Google account with a spreadsheet where we'll add the data and where we'll export the data to, and a Zapier account. Before we begin creating our Zap, we need to set up our spreadsheet. Our integration will work by getting the information from the rows in our spreadsheet and adding them to the fields in our pipe start form. To make sure the information will flow seamlessly through the integration, we need to make sure that the columns in our spreadsheet can be matched to the fields. We need to be especially careful with fields that require format validation, such as email. So you can see here that we have an email field, and if we're gonna match this column here to an email field in Pipefy, we can only add email addresses here. Same for phone number, same for if we have a number field, we cannot have letters in it, and so on. We'll use the first row here in our spreadsheet to indicate the name of the field in each column will be matched to. So we're gonna create a simple Zap. We're gonna only match 3 fields: customer name, phone number, and email. And we add the names here to make it easier to find the fields when creating the Zap. Then we also have to add a row of test data. We're gonna need this information later when setting up the Zap. It's also very important that we make absolutely sure that we don't have any blank rows before or within our data. So when we insert the data in our spreadsheet, or when you copy and paste here, we cannot have any blank rows in the middle of our data or before our data because that's going to cause errors in our Zap. Also, we're going to set the Zap so that it will only create new cards when we add new rows to the end of the spreadsheet. If we delete or replace rows, especially within the data that the Zap has already identified, that may cause errors. Now we're going to access Zapier to begin creating our Zap. Okay, we finished setting up our spreadsheet. It's all set. The first step for setting up our Zap is logging into Zapier. I've already logged into our account here. And to begin creating a Zap, we're going to click here on the Make a Zap button. So our first step here is selecting a trigger app. Our trigger app is going to be Google Sheets. So I'm going to type here and we're going to select Google Sheet. The next step is selecting the trigger inside Google Sheets. In our case, it's going to be New Spreadsheet Row. We're going to click here, save and continue. The next step is Connect. So we need to, if we have already connected our Google Sheets account, you can see we have a lot of accounts here. I haven't connected my account yet, so I'm going to connect it here. I'm going to click here on Connect an Account, and it's going to open a pop-up window with, I'm already logged into Google in Google Chrome, so it's not going to ask for me to sign in. It's already going to present myself with my emails here. So I just click here on my email, isabel@pipefy.com, and then it's going to ask me if I allow Zapier to access my Google account. So I'm going to hit here, allow, and that's it. My account is connected. I'm just going to hit here, test, to make sure that it's okay. It says success, so I'm going to save and continue. Now that our account is connected, we're going to first select the spreadsheet. We're going to put the data into. So the name of our spreadsheet here is, let me put here, it's this one, test customer data. And we also need to select the worksheet inside the spreadsheet. So the worksheet here is import data. I already select here spreadsheet and worksheet. I'm going to hit continue here. So the last step in setting up our trigger is testing Google Sheets. This is the reason why we've added the test row to our spreadsheet. We're going to click here at the end where it says fetch and continue to run the test, and we're going to wait for a confirmation message. There you go. It says our test is successful, so we're all set. We're going to hit continue here so we can move on to select our action app. Our action app, as you may already have guessed, is going to be Pipefy. So we click here, select Pipefy, and we're going to select the action in Pipefy, which is going to be create card. We hit save and continue, and the next step is connecting our Pipefy account. I haven't connected my Pipefy account, so I'm going to go right down to the bottom here and hit connect an account. And once I click here, it's going to ask me for two pieces of information. My email, so I'm going to input my email here, and an API key. We can get the API key. We're going to click here on this page, and it's going to take us straight to our settings in Pipefy, and we can access the API key right down at the bottom. All right. We're just going to copy it here, sorry, and paste it here. After we paste the API key, I'm going to hit yes, continue, and I'm going to click here on tests to make sure my account is working. We're all set. We're going to hit save and continue. So now that our account has been connected, we're first going to select the pipe where we want the cards to be created in. I have a lot of pipes, so I'm going to type the name of my pipe here. This is the name of it, import customer data. And after we select the pipe, the next step is matching the columns in our spreadsheet to the fields. So we're going to match the columns in our spreadsheet. So we had customer name, phone number, and email to the fields in our pipe. The fields in our pipes form are customer name, phone number, and email. So we're going to go back here to the Zap. And when we click here next to the side, we're going to select customer name. Then we click here phone number, and then email. It's very important that we double check to make sure that if the fields have format validation, so email, number, currency, that the information in the spreadsheet is in the same format that it needs to be in the pipe. Then we're going to come and click continue, and we're going to send a test card to Pipefy to make sure our Zap is working. So we're going to click here to send test to Pipefy. You can see here a test card was sent to Pipefy. Now let's open our pipe, and we can see here that John Smith, it was just created with the data. So It was just created 12 seconds ago, so our Zap is working just fine. Now that our Zap is working, we're gonna finish here, and all that's done is naming our Zap and turning it on. So, and I'm gonna turn it on here, and we're good to go. So we can see here that Zapier tells us that this Zap is not instant, and it's going to automatically check for our Google Sheets new spreadsheet row every 5 minutes. So it's not going to be instant. It's not going to be automatic. Let's move back to our dashboard because we're just going to copy and paste our data, and I'm going to teach you guys how we can make the Zap run instantly. So we're going to move back to our spreadsheet here. In sheet number 2, I have some data I've added here so we can copy and paste. So I'm going to just select these data here. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to move back to the worksheet we've integrated. I'm going to hit paste. And this would take about 5 minutes normally if we didn't use this little trick. But we're going to move back to our dashboard. And you can see here our integration, our Zap is here. I'm going to click here. I'm going to click on Run. Once I do, it's going to manually run the Zap. So it's looking for new items, and it's been triggered on 5 new items. So it's going to trigger our event here, and it's going to create new card in Pipefy. So we're going to move back to our pipe, and we can see here that we have all 5 new cards here. This Zap can be used to mass upload cards by adding multiple rows at the end of a spreadsheet. To make this work, we need to make sure that we have a spreadsheet with all the data we want to import into the pipe and a separate one with the column titles and test row when setting up the integration. So if we want to mass upload cards into a pipe, we would probably need to have a separate spreadsheet with all the data and a spreadsheet set just like this with the test row and the headers, and then we would copy and paste after setting up the Zap. It's very important that we don't copy and paste more than 100 rows at a time. You can do that, copy and paste, and manually run the Zap if we have more than 100 rows, because if Zapier detects a large inflow of information, it can block your Zap. So here on Zapier we have a section called task history, and Zapier may or may not allow your Zap to run. So here we can see that Google Sheets Pipefy was run. So remember I told you guys about the tasks. Those were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tasks we run with our Zap. And we have tons of other Zaps. Also, if we had failed Zaps or blocked Zaps, we would be able to identify them here in our task history. Now that we're done with our first integration, we're going to move on to our second one. We're going to export data from our pipe. We're going to move back here and click on Make a Zap again. And this time, our trigger app will be Pipefy. So let's select Pipefy here. And our trigger is going to be card done. We could also use other triggers, such as card moved. And we could or not add a filter as another step to our app. That would probably increase the complexity of our Zap. We have here the option, so we could add a filter, and then we could specify that we could only trigger the Zap if the card was moved to a specific phase. We could do that, but I selected when the card is done because our test pipe here has only 2 phases. So I'm going to use the card done trigger. We're going to save and continue. We've already connected our account, so we're just going to select it here, hit save and continue, and then we're going to select the pipe we want the Zap to watch for done cards. So our pipe is going to be the same one we used. It's going to be import customer data. So this is our pipe here, and we're going to hit continue. And the next step is testing. So for the test to work, we need to make sure we have at least one card that was recently created. So it was recently created. We have a few cards that were recently created by the previous Zap. So we're going to hit fetch and continue. All right. Our test was successful, so we can hit continue. And we're going to move on to our action. Our action is going to be Google Sheets. And we're going to select create spreadsheet row. We hit save and continue. And the next step is selecting our Google Sheets account from the list. Since we've already added our account, we're going to select it here from the bottom, hit save and continue. And now we're going to select the spreadsheet. So our spreadsheet is going to be the same, customer data, but we're going to use a different worksheet. Our worksheet this time is going to be export data. So here, export data. After we select the spreadsheet and the worksheet, we're going to do the same matching of the fields, but it's going to be the other way around. So we're going to select, here are the names of the columns in our spreadsheet here. So we have customer name, phone number, email created and finished at. And here we're going to select the data in the card, and the fields of the card are going to be matched to this column. So here it's going to be field customer name, field phone number, field email. Here I've added some additional information because we can extract more data. So we can add the name or email of the person that created this card. So I'm going to put the name of the person that created the card and when it was finished. So here we have finished at. So this data is going to also be added to our spreadsheet. We hit continue and it's going to send a test row to Google Sheets. So we can see here, it's already sent a test row to Google Sheets. We're going to do the same and finish by naming it and saving it. So we've named it. Now we're going to turn it on. We can see this zap here is instant. So while on, the zapper is going to run instantly when the Pipefy card done trigger happens. So we're going to move back to our pipe here and move a few cards to done. So because this is a done phase, you can see here the check mark. So it's going to create the data in our spreadsheet. So if it's something we need to run automatically, but see, it's already run here. So we have the data from all our cards here. That will be it for today's webinar. I hope you liked this new content format. It's a lot shorter, a lot more compact, and it's a different approach to our integrations. There are several other ways we could integrate these two apps. We could, for example, use a different action such as updating the spreadsheet rows every time a card is moved, so we can keep our spreadsheet updated every time we move the card. We can also do that. But this is a subject for another day. Thanks everyone for joining. I hope I was able to provide useful content that will help you guys make your team's processes more efficient. Again, if you have any questions or if you'd like to ask about a specific use case or a different integration, feel free to reach out via in-app chat or directly in my email. I'll be happy to help. Thanks again for joining, and I hope to see you all again in our next webinars.